Okay, group 0 here. This is a demo of our database first. We have a classes table, an appointments table, a users table, and a user class table that associates users to classes. So this is our classes table. This is where all the data is going to go from our Python scraper. We might turn classes into regular appointments. This is the appointments table. There's an appointment ID, date, start time, end time. Then we have the user table. Oops, users table, clicked on the wrong one there. So here we have first name, last name, password, username, and then also a database ID. And then finally the user class table that associates users with their classes. So that's the database. Now for the Python scraper. Let's see what that looks like. It's almost complete. There are just a couple of troubleshooting issues with scraping the start time and the stop time, but we have it to a point where it's functionally printing out MySQL insert statements. So what we did is we navigated the Python script to the department websites where we would get all the links for each department, and then from each department we would get the links for all the courses, the classes, and then for each class we would scrape the days that it needs, the start date, the end date, start time, the end time, and the ID in the database is just going to be the CRN dash section number. So right now this script simply prints out MySQL insert statements, and then we use one of those greater than symbols to send all the prints to a file, and then we can use the file to actually populate the database. And we might change this and make it more automated later, but basically that's where we're at with the scraper. And let's see what the MySQL insert statements look like now. And here it is. It's a huge file. As you can see on the right-hand side, the start time and end time are missing, but I think there's a very quick fix for that. There's basically something going on with the array sizes. Okay, let's go over.
And next we are going to talk about the web application, and bear with us for just a moment. While we find it. This is my email from Kevin McGrath. Okay, so here's the appointment finder. You can see here we have a search for names. Oh man. Okay, so if you wanted to make an appointment for Kobe Bryant, you put it into the list. Another one with Cosmo Kramer. You just type them in, the autocomplete populates it. We have a button there where you can update the list, which is basically saved on a JSON file. If you click the update list button, it's going to update that JSON file with whatever is in the database. That sends it out to a PHP page to update the list. So now we have the two names chosen, and if we want to search for more people, we can do that as well. Now if we inspect the element, and I don't know how well this is going to show up here, but you can see that that the value, oh yeah, this isn't going to show up at all. But anyway, the two ID numbers for Kobe Bryant and Cosmo Kramer have both been inserted into a hidden input screen. And so both of those are there. If we want to reset the form, then it's not only going to reset the start date and end date, it's also going to reset those, and it's going to delete the value in that input. So we're also going to have a start date. Oh, here we go. Which we're using the date picker to choose from the jQuery UI. We have a start time and an end time, which I've set to default at 7 a.m. and ending at 8 p.m. That way, if the user doesn't want to have to enter that in every time, they don't have to. They can make that as broad or as narrow as they want. Once all of this is submitted, it's going to send to another PHP page, which will again query the server and check for when appointments are available. And that's as far as I am at this point.
Okay. All right, you on me now?
Yep.
All right, good stuff. So my responsibilities for the project are to provide a link to people's individual calendars using the Google Calendar API, as well as the Persis command line argument interaction with the application. One thing I wanted to point out is much of the Google Calendar API portion is handled for you. This is all done in Python, by the way. One thing that I had to do was get my authorization. You can't really make this work without it.
Hey, Yuko, can you bring that thing to the front, whatever he was doing? Sorry.
I took it away.
Okay.
It was just a file showing the authorization that you have to get through Google. And basically, it tells Google that you want to access the certain people's calendars. And here's the code for the Google Calendar API. This is what Google supplies you. And from there, it's pretty much plug and play. So Google, all of this is overhead provided by Google. One thing that you have to supply here is again, the authorization, particularly this file. It's a JSON file. It's like a key to Google Calendar's API. Drilling down into the code a bit more, this is all overhead here. This is the main, this while true block is where most of the main work happens. I supplied my own personal email for the purposes of this project, or for testing right now. I wanted to print basically the ID of the person and go through and get all the events in my personal calendar, getting their start and end times. And this is, whenever you access the Google Calendar API, it's a JSON object, so you have to parse it accordingly. And when I run it, when it's done running, I return the person's email address, as well as their start and end times for the last 2 months. And this was mainly done just for testing. I wanted to see how far out I could add or delete an event in the calendar and be able to access it.
Okay, so that's it for the video. Yeah. Well, John, were you? I think there's a bit of a miscommunication here.
Okay. What?